Okay, I got my 2013 Hyundai Sonata here. We're going to be replacing the engine in this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, we got the hood up. We're going to get over here and disconnect this battery first. Okay, so we're going to start over here on the negative. Okay, so we're going to go down here and get this 12mm clamp. Hold our battery. Alright, so I'm going to get a magnet and get that. There's that little bolt. Okay, I'm just getting the clamp out of here. Okay, so we're going to attempt to lift this battery out of here. We don't have any handles. Okay, we'll get this little insulated piece. And we're going to get to the problem with the engine. You can rest assured it is bad. And I'll show you why here eventually. Okay, so we're going to work on the front of this air duct here and start removing some of this. We got a couple of pins. Now you'll want to put a lot of these bolts back as you go with everything that you're taking it out of, or you'll never remember what bolt goes to what, and they're going to be different lengths, and it's just going to be a big mess. Alright, so this should be loose. So here's that piece. Okay, so we're just going to stick these right back here. Okay, now we're going to get on these tins right here. Remove these two for our air box. And then we're going to move on to the next step. It's really amazing once you remove an air box and a battery tray, it's at the room that you have in these front wheel drives. Okay, so there's those. Okay, now here's where you're going to want to start labeling so you don't forget things. We're going to pop that little hose back and push that off with a screwdriver. Okay, back here at the back of this duct, we're going to get this hose. And I'm going to push that off with a screwdriver just like I did the other one. And all these hoses like to fight with you a little bit. So we're going to label these as to where they go, because we're going to be removing a lot of stuff. Okay, now we're up here at the throttle body. I'm going to come in here. You can use a Phillips or 10. I'm going to loosen this band up right here. Okay, that's nice and loose. So we're just going to wiggle this. Okay, now we're ready just to lift this piece up. It sits in some grommets in the back, but you should be able just to pop it right up, the whole piece. Okay, we're going to this battery tray. If you don't come from the back side with these clips and push on these from the back side where they clip in, you're all but certain to break them. So come in behind where it clips into, push the two tabs until you can pull it out easily. Now down here we've got 12s go ahead and start taking these 4 loose. And you'll note that I put the clamp and the bolt back here. This is kind of how I'm going to address everything as I go. And it's just the best way, if you can, without the bolts and nuts being in the way, put them back where they go. And it's just going to make it a lot easier when you go to putting this back. You don't have to do any guessing and hunting. And if I'm in a situation where I can't put them back, then I will label exactly what the bolt is, because there's a lot of different sizes and lengths, and don't want to get them mixed up. I'm certain I have a couple of more wire clips on this here. Let me see. Actually, no. Okay, so we got that out of here. Okay, our shifter cable down here is easy pickings, so we might as well go ahead and get that. Kind of take a note as to where it is located. You can kind of see where the nut was fastened to it there before, but we'll just try to put it back in the same manner. Put that nut back on there. Now we got to get up here and get the clip out of this other end. Okay, this is easy enough to push up. You got to push in on both these tabs on each side. You kind of see how I've got both these tabs pushed in now, and you can just lift this once those are pushed in good. Okay, it will come off of here. It's just being stubborn. Okay, it's a pretty tight fit. There we go. Now you can see these tabs, we had to push them in. Probably before we snap it back on, we'll just slightly pop these back out a little bit because we want that to grip and hold. So you got to push these 2 tabs on each side. That's what locks it in. I think we're going to go ahead and pop this decorative cover off and see what kind of stuff may be hiding up under here. So that just pops down in those rubber grommets. Okay. Okay, I think the next thing we're going to focus on is getting this wire from here and separating it from in this box here. Basically, we're just going to go in here and take that 10mm, unsnap it right here, take these 2 loose, and with these, we can either go under this or wait till we remove these and fold it back over here. These are going to have to come loose anyway. But that'll have this disconnected from over here. Now as we come up here, we've got this connector that's got some 10mm, and this is running up into this computer, so we're going to disconnect that and lay that back over this way as well. So I think that's going to be my next move here. I'm just working on kind of getting the wiring loose from the car and just kind of double checking some things. We'll probably have some wires running down to the, so we've got a connector going down here as well. Okay, so we're just starting up here. So label everything. We got that loose. Just put that back on there. Sometimes you can't get to these wire clips from behind. In those cases, you just have to break them if they don't come easily. I think this one will still be alright. Okay, we're going to just get these out from this part of the harness. So we're not trying to get anything off of the engine or the transmission, we're just trying to separate it from the car. Okay, so now we know we got that loose. Okay, this bracket here has 3 of these 12 millimeters. They're never real easy to get to. I could probably get this line here out of the way first, but I'm going to see if I can't get these out of here without having to do that. But there's 3 of them underneath here, and we can get this bracket out of the way because it's going to be in the way when we go to trying to pull this out of here. So I've got the first one just about. Okay, there's that first one. Now I'm using a little 1/4 inch here. Okay, I'm just working the last bolt out over here and we'll have this bracket out of the way. Okay, now we're going to get this 10 millimeter here for this wire that's going up to the computer box. We've got a couple of these. Okay, won't be able to get that one just yet. Okay, now we're going to get this one right here. I think we may have one more. Okay, instead of messing with these connectors, I think I'm just going to take this whole computer box that's going to be in the way. We got a 10 millimeter down here. Let me show you. Right down there. And we got one at the other end. We're just going to take this whole computer. Okay, I took the other one from right back there. Okay, so there's one more right here. So we had this one and this one in the back. And now this whole box here is loose. And all we got is a ground. We're going to label that. And then we got this harness running right in here. We're going to disconnect that. Okay, so now we're going to get this 10 millimeter for this ground. And we'll be able to lay this whole computer box, which will be better because the pins and won't get damaged and there won't be no water to have to worry about. So we're just going to leave it together. Okay, I'm back here at this brake booster. We're going to go ahead and disconnect this vacuum hose right here. Okay, and here we are getting that off there. Okay, I'm up here at the front on the connector running to the fan. We're going to disconnect this here. Just push down right there on that tab. I need to get this connector off of this fan. So we're going to take a Phillips. We're going to take this screw out right here. And we'll just lift up on that a little bit. And there that is. We'll just carefully place this aside so it's not getting damaged. So we got that freed up. Okay, while we're here at this, we need to disconnect this connector right here. It's running down to this wire. Just push that down right there. We want to go ahead and label this as well. Okay, I'm going to get this 10 millimeter for this big hose while I'm up here and get this loose from the fan. Now, I'm not going to be taking the fan out just yet. I'm just kind of prepping everything and getting it ready to be removed. Alright, so we're just going to push that and put our bolts right back where they go. Okay, now I'm going to be, you notice I've got some tape here, so just so I can put a mark for the alignment. I'm going to take out, we've got several of these tins that are coming through the top here. We're going to just take these out and label these as to where they go. We're just kind of taking one thing at a time here. Okay, then we got another one right here. We're going to get, just completely removing these. This is just to get this little top brace out of the way. Okay, so now we're just on the other side. We're going to do the same exact thing over here. We're going to take all these here loose and take these out completely. Okay, now we're up here in the front. We got these little push tabs, the Phillips screw. We're going to start taking those out. Usually you can just pull it once it gets to a certain point because it wants to start spinning. Okay, so there's the first one. We're just going to get the rest of them here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove these on this side. Okay, we've got these tins on either side of the bumper up here by the light. We're going to take these out. And we'll get the one on this side. Okay, now that's going to enable us to pull this back just slightly, kind of lift up a little bit right there. And then we can get to these bolts. Okay, so we're going to get on these tins right here. I just got a little 1/4 inch ratchet. Alright, so we're just going to completely remove these. And we're going to go over to the other side and do the same thing. And I think we're going to have plenty of room to do what needs to be done here. If not, we can take the bumper off. Okay, so we're just over here on the passenger side doing the same thing. Getting these two bolts over here. Okay, so now we're just working on these 3 bolts up here on this hood latch. So we got the bolt to here, here, and then one right over here. So we're just going to go ahead and take those out. Okay, I was trying to avoid taking this bumper off, but there's a bolt that's right on the very bottom of this hood latch that's just really difficult to get to, so it's going to be more trouble than it's worth. And this piece here is not so easy to unsnap and worry of damaging it, so this bumper is just going to have to come off. It's not a really big deal. I just, you know, it's another step. Okay, so I've done everything that I can really tackle from up top for now. So basically what I'm going to do is go ahead and get the car lifted up, because everything else is going to require me getting underneath and working and stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and get the car lifted at this point. Okay, just wanted to show you my setup here. We've got a jack stand for backup. We got it on blocks. This is where my lift point was. Did this on both sides. I did break those lugs loose before I lifted it up there. We got the rear chalked. So at this point I'm going to just go ahead and get both of the tires off. Okay, so we got a 21 millimeter here. Already got these loose. Now, if you're not using an impact, you're going to have to also get your axle nut loose while you got it down on the ground. And I've got a couple of videos specifically on dealing with the CV axle, in case you need to view that. Okay, let's go ahead and get this wheel off. We'll do this on both sides. Okay, our first order of business is removing these little Phillips plastic snaps that get this first little piece off here. So we're going to take these out and just pull those down. And I will say that this stuff will not be going back on my car. I guess it serves some kind of purpose, but it also serves a purpose of hiding leaks so you can't see where they're coming from, and then you run into big problems. Okay, and you're going to have a 10 millimeter on each end here that's going to need to come off. Okay, now we're down to the last one for this piece on this end. Okay, and this whole piece will just kind of slide back and out of there and just drop down. Okay, next up on the driver's side, we're just going to start from the driver's and just work our way across. And there's some snaps holding this up so it won't just fall down, or it shouldn't at least. Okay, so we're going to get these right here out. So now we're over on the passenger side here. Got one right here in the middle. Okay, we're on the driver's side at the back. This rear one here. Okay, so we're at the back in the middle where this mount, this torsion mount is. Okay, and then a little bit farther back, we've got this one right here. Okay, we're at the back on the passenger side, and this should be our final bolt. We're going to pull it down, unsnap it in the front, and just slide these panels out. Okay, we start with this driver's panel. Give it a little tug down. And it'll just come right down like that. Okay, same thing on the passenger panel. You just pull the snaps, and then you'll pull it slightly forward, and it'll come right down. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get our oil drain. I just like to get all the fluids took care of. Right. Okay, I just wanted to point something out while we're here. This, you can see that this oil pan has been leaking towards this back side here pretty severely for quite some time. You see with these covers on here, it's exactly my point. You can't see where exactly that oil's coming from as easily. So this Could very well be the reason for the engine failure. I don't know. Okay, next up we got our drain plug for a transmission. I'm going to be using a 24 here. Usually this stuff will come pouring out here. Okay, and this is pretty black transmission fluid. It should never look like this. Now, usually what I like to do is just drain it out. We'll put back what we drained out exactly. But I mean, I guess that's to say that they had the level right before, but we can always check it. But we know we're going to be pretty close if we put back what we take out. Now that's got a magnet on the end there. It needs to be cleaned off. Okay, so this is what we poured up and got right at 4.5 quarts. We filled it up to the 4-quart line, and then we got another half quart. So we'll start there. Now I'm a little concerned with how dirty the transmission fluid is, and the fact there was some tiny metallic debris in there. But we'll see how it goes. Okay, we got our pan down here, and the next thing we're going to get our coolant draining. Okay, it'll also help we go up and we take the cap off and let air get in. Okay, so we got it draining good now. Okay, while that's draining, we're going to get on these fender wells. We just got these little Phillips head snapped in rivets here. And we've got another one up here. We're just going to take out all of these that are on the front part here, where I can pull it back enough to see what I need to get at. Okay, we had another one right over here. Okay, we got some more underneath here. And we're gonna get these two. Got to kind of keep this thing from spinning while you try to work the little screw out. And sometimes they just don't want to work. So if you ever get that. Okay, and we've got another one right over here we're gonna get. Okay, so with those down there, this whole flap will move aside here. Okay, so we look up here, we've got a 10 or a Phillips that's going to be holding this bumper. So we're just going to take that, and we're going to do the same thing on both sides. Now, we do have some lights to disconnect. Okay, if we look up in here, we're going to squeeze. Go ahead and disconnect that fog light. Okay, if you look up in there, you can see there's two more Phillips screws that are going through the bottom here that you have to remove. I'm probably going to take, this should be coming out of here now because I don't see any others. I'm probably going to take these fender flaps completely out because I can see how they're going to kind of get in the way later. Okay, when the screws are out, it does kind of clip in there. As you can see, those little clips, and you can just kind of pull it out or take a small screwdriver and carefully push down those tabs right there, and it will release. So this is ready, pretty much come off. I've got the lights disconnected, and it should just kind of wiggle itself off of here once we have both sides disconnected. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and there we go. So we'll carefully put this out of the way so it's not getting damaged. There was that 10 millimeter. It's hard to get to, and with that, this piece here will come off. Okay, so there's that latch. Just kind of set that there a moment. Now we'll have the cable on the underside, I think, but other than that, everything should be freed up. So we'll flip it over. Okay, we do have a connector here. You got to push back right here. That just kind of pushes back. And then we've got this that clips in here. We need to get this little clip up here without damaging it. Usually best to push it from the back side. Okay, so I'm popping that part through the cable. And then the only other part I have is to pop it out of this right here. And we'll have this free. I do got one more of those connectors on the other end. Okay, so here's this one. We're going to give it a push back here. Okay, we went ahead and took the time to put all our little bitty 10mm back where they go so we're not getting them mixed up. Next thing we're going to work on is disconnecting these hose clamps here right behind this throttle body. Both of these right here we're going to disconnect. So this one and this one, we're going to take them loose, and then we're just going to keep that with the radiator. Okay, so there we got both those hoses loose. Okay, down here we got a few things. I'm using a 7mm for these transmission lines. We're just going to take them loose right here on the side of the transmission. Now we're going to get a pan down here as well because there's going to be some fluid. I'm taking the lower one out. Now you want to keep up with your little copper washers that are going to be on here. Now it's not, we've got a bracket right here. The other washer and the line's not going to come loose until we take this 10mm loose. And here's that lower one. So we just got to get the upper. Now we've also got a ground wire. So don't lose your little copper washers. They're going to be sandwiched. The line's going to be sandwiched in between them. But you should have two of those. So we got a ground wire right here, and then this bracket right here we're going to take loose and get our bracket. So these lines will be completely loose, and usually I like to just take and wrap a paper towel or tape around just so they're not getting dinged up and damaged. So we'll just put that little bolt back. Okay, now we'll get on this. Okay, so I'm going to be using a 12mm on this, and we'll want to label this as well so I'm not forgetting it. And as to where it goes, still not. Alright, so we've got our bracket and we got this loose. So I'm going to label this, mark there, and I'm going to put something on the end of my lines here. And we'll want to also go down here and get these little copper washers I was talking about. Okay, so there's that little copper wash. Should have two of them. Okay, so we got the one that goes on here. So we got the other one. That line goes in between. So it should be four altogether. And we'll just set those aside. I usually like to get something and plug these up so no debris is getting in there. Okay, I'm gonna pop this screw out and try to get this out so I can see what exactly. I think the condenser just snaps down in there, but I'm gonna take these out so I can see what's going on. Okay, turns out I don't need to do that. All I have to do is pull this, and then this condenser just lifts up. Pull back on that tab on each side, and it lifts up, and it's free. So at this point, okay, we're going to get over here and take these tins out of this overflow. We're just going to take this whole overflow. It's going to need to come out. We're just going to take the whole thing at once. I'm just getting that other bolt. So that's completely free. Let me get our cap back on here. And we've got our lines loose. Everything at this point, our coolant lines, everything should be loose here. So we're going to go ahead and try to lift it on out of here. Okay, so here we go. We're going to try not to bump. Okay, I'm hung up a little. Okay, so my cooler lines are getting hung up over there. And other than that, everything was going pretty easy. Okay, and just to show you how much room that clears up there, and I'm going to put some cardboard on this just to be on the safe side so nothing's nicking it. But this is going to allow us to pull this engine more forward and clear. For one thing, we got the brake master cylinder, and then we got the exhaust down there that's pretty long, and we want to make sure that we're going to be clearing this cowl up here, so that's going to give us plenty of room to bring that forward, just having that radiator and fan out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started on our CV axles. We're going to bend this cotter pin back, and I'm going to be using a impact. We want to try to get this pretty straight, or you'll have trouble getting it back through here. Okay, this is going to need to be probably tapped out. And there's our cotter pin out. Okay, I've got a 32 millimeter here. And we'll get our little split washer. We'll see if we're able to move that back. Okay, so let's hit it with the rubber mallet. Okay, so we got it loose, as you can see there. Okay, we're going to get on our ABS. We've got a 10 millimeter. Push this on both sides. You should be able to push that back through there. And get on this brake line with a 12 millimeter. Going to remove both these 24s. Now we're going to have to hold it on the other side with the 19. Okay, so we got to hold it on this side while we're taking it loose over here. I'm just going to remove the nut side first. Okay, we're going to remove the lower because it's going to get in the way of getting to the bracket to knuckle for the brake. There's that bolt. Alright, I got my swivel to make it a little easier for the top. 17 millimeter. Go ahead and start taking that one out. Okay, we got that one pretty well loose. We'll get on the lower one. Okay, we're getting this lower. Okay, there's that one. Okay, so we're just finished removing this upper. Okay, I got some wire up on the spring already. So I'm going to go ahead and just loop it through this hole right here. Okay, so we got it nice and out of the way. Okay, so we're going to finish removing this upper bolt, and we're going to get a hand on the knuckle and the CV axle. Okay, I'm going to push back on the CV axle as I'm letting this come down. We'll just let that set there. Okay, so I'm just going up here with my about 1.5 foot long pry bar, and I just come right to the bottom and caught a hold of it. Just gave it some good rocks. So we've got it completely loose at this point, where we can just reach up in here with our hand and pop it the rest of the way. Okay, so we're over here on the passenger side. The only difference is this one over here is longer, and we got to come up here in between where the transmission and motor meet up. Okay, so you see where we're at here, and I'm just taking this same pry bar. This is probably about 16 inches long. We're just going to get back behind it here. You can catch it on this, or just kind of rotate it and rock it. And once you get it to that point, you're home free. We'll just get out here and work it on out from the outside. So it's all freed up. We're just going to let it set there. We'll go on out and get a hand on it and pull it from the outside. Okay, now here's a side-by-side comparison of these two. Okay, so my battery had died, but what I've been working on is I got a hold of this tensioner down here with a 17 millimeter, popped the belt off, and I've come down here and been working on this AC compressor. You can see I've got those 4 bolts, and we also got this little connector. Just squeeze down there and pop that out. We've got the bolts out of this, and we're gonna basically, the AC compressor is just sitting there for now, and we're just going to get the bolts loose, and because we're going to keep all of the AC system separate from the engine as we're pulling it out. And the only other thing I was going to do is get on the fuel lines up here. We've got one running up here, and we want to get a rag on this as we're popping this off. Okay, so let's say just pull that up, squeeze in on these tabs on both sides, and just kind of relieve the pressure with the rag there. And we'll want to get this little 10mm that's holding both of these, and we'll get our needle nose and pop this loose here, and then we'll get on that clamp right down there. Okay, so there we have that loose. It's off of that stud there, so the fuel line is loose. We'll just have to watch that as we're pulling the engine. I want to take you under here and show you what I've been doing with the exhaust. Okay, so as you come under here by the oil pan, sort of, you look over here to the right, and you've got some 19mm, and what I was using was a extension with a swivel, and I just came from back here, as you can see them just fine, and broke those loose. So this is where we're going to disconnect the exhaust, and I think we'll have plenty of slack. Just getting the one on the other side. There's just 2 of them. These are 19mm nuts. Okay, so it's got a gasket on there, as you can see. Now you can see there's not a lot of slack there. What I'm going to do is come back here. In addition, I'm going to take this loose, and you take a little WD-40 and you can just pop this rubber piece right off, just like that. So that's off. We're just going to take this one and this one and just take this little section kind of back out of the way. Okay, you can see I got that section loose there. I like to take these apart and douse them with anti-seize anyways. We got to go up here and get this O2 sensor disconnected, and then I'll be able to just pull this piece kind of down out of the way. It just won't be hanging up, you know, won't have to worry about it when we go to pull the engine up. This is where that O2 sensor disconnects, and you notice these little grooves. It sets down in this here. You just push that up and off of there. It's got a few little clips that just kind of the wire sits into, but it's not being held. So that's loose. I'm going to push that down there. So this is the end that connects. You push this safety lock back, and then you push down on that right there. Okay, over here on the passenger side we got a ground. We're going to label this. You can see that we've got the exhaust disconnected. Okay, and you can see that we pretty much got everything disconnected. I'm going to kind of go over it a little bit, but everything is pretty much disconnected. We got a mount down there in the middle on the bottom we're going to have to get, and other than that I'm just going to lift this out of here. I'm thinking, looks like this box, I may have to move it, because I was kind of wanting to just lift it up with the mounts but I still may be able to, because I may have enough slack to move it over a little bit to clear this box here, because I'm wanting to just hook to it under here and just lift it up and kind of come up and out and clear the front. You see I got cardboard on this, but this AC compressor is loose. All I got to do is pull it back and it's just going to hang loose. So it's just sitting there for now. This is the only thing that might be in my way. I could take it loose and maybe kind of manipulate it a little bit to kind of get it up out of the way so I can come straight up here. But actually, when I start coming forward, I'm going to clear it anyway, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. But anyways, this is where we're at. I'm going to kind of just go over it, and it's starting to get dark, so I'll just get started on it in the daylight. It's too late now to get hooked up to it and try to pull it out. This is where you're going to fill your transmission fluid, and then down here is the fuel plug where it's supposed to come to. Okay, we're back out here today. I was getting my straps fixed up here. We're not ready to quite start lifting it yet, but I've got a chain just ran from this lift point over to this lift point, and then I've got a strap that's just running. It runs underneath that mount there just to stabilize that. Now what I'd figured out I'm going to have to do, because this mount is going through the stud here, I'm going to probably have to figure out how to get this out from over that, or I may in fact have to support this while I remove this whole portion. So that kind of changes that up a little bit. So anyways, we went ahead, we got the heater hoses loose. I believe everything at this point is loose. There's a few more things I need to get underneath and do here. Okay, right under here at this torsion mount, this is a 17. Now there's some other bolts running to the bottom of this bracket. This transmission is not going to set down flat with this bracket on here. So I'm going to wind up removing both of these. I'm going to remove this one, and then we're going to pop the bolts out of this bracket. I believe those are 15s or 14s there. But I need that to be out of the way. And then we're going to get on the other side. I got a couple more bolts I'm going to remove. Now, you'd also want to get to your torque converter bolts. However, in this case, the engine is completely locked up, so I'm not going to be able to do it that way. So I'm going to get this and the bracket here. I'm going to get on the other side. Okay, so there's that bolt. Okay, we got a couple of bolts, and this will actually pull out of there. Now I can get to this bracket here a little bit easier. Those are 14s, all these. And here's this down out of the way. Okay, we're over on the other side. Now this is normally where you would go in and get to your torque converter. You got to pop this little dust shield out, and then you'd be able to go in here and see there's one right there. I can't even get to that one right there. So that's where you would go in at. What I'm going to do while I'm down here, because I'm going to be setting this engine off on the floor, I'm going to take these bottommost bolts loose that I think that I won't be able to get to. So probably just this one and this one right here, and we'll leave the others. So I'm going to go ahead and just figure out what these are. I think those are 14s as well. Okay, so I'm going to get a shorter 14 and Just get in there and get those two off, and we're going to label each and every one of these that come out of the transmission, because a lot of times there'll be different links. So we'll put say a number 1 here, and we'll mark it, and a number 2 there, and mark that one. Okay, so we're just going to get this first one out here. This is kind of a tight fit for me. Alright, so I'm going to get a ratchet wrench over here. As I said, this is just a little bit of pre-planning. Now once I get these two out, what we're going to do is actually lower this car down about 4 to 6 inches, because as it is, I've got it up way too high. I want it to be down a lot lower before I start lifting this engine up. Okay, so we're going to mark each of these regardless, even if the bolt looks the same, because there are different links usually as you go along. We're going to make sure we just put them back wherever they came from. So once I get this out, we're going to be ready to go ahead and lower the whole entire vehicle back down. And then we're going to go ahead and get hooked up to it. Okay, so I got my jack stands. You can see I removed just a few of the boards there. Okay, so we should have this about where we need it. We're going to go ahead and get the lift. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, because of this mount being on the stud there, what I'm going to do is get my jack under here and support this. And I'm going to completely remove this part right here of the mount. Okay, this little bracket attaches to the frame with a little 10mm. I've took that loose and just loosened this one off a little bit so I could get to this 14 more easily. So we just got a 14 here, and we got another one here, and then we got the one on the stud here. But before we can get this off, we have to have these 17s. We got 4 17mm we're going to remove from the transmission here. Okay, so you see I've got those out, and we've got these. There's actually one more that's right down there, 14, and we're going to go ahead and get that one out, and we're going to lift this whole thing out, and then we get the bolts that are going into this. Okay, now we should be able to lift this whole entire piece out. And we're going to get these bolts from the back, and we'll just put the bracket back on so we've got a lift point. Okay, here's these two separated out. There's a couple really long bolts, and we're going to go ahead and put the bracket back on the transmission now and get our strap under it. Okay, I didn't realize until just now I was doing this the hard way. There's a little dust cap you pop off right here, and you just come through this area to get to this mount. We'll do that going back in. It'll be easier than what I'm doing here. Okay, I'm going to get my lift hooked up. The only thing I have to remove is this 17 right here. We're going to remove that nut, and then we're just going to lift everything up. But you'll see how I've got it hooked up here in a moment. So we're going to get a hold of that. This is going to stabilize the transmission. Hopefully it's going to come out nice and level. We'll see. Okay, so here is the way I got it set up. It's looped here, looped around this, and then bolted to either side of these. And this seems to be working out okay. I got to get the 17mm nut over there to get it loose, but it is supporting this side as is. The only problem, running out of travel up here. So what I might have to do is get these loose and slide this forward just a little bit. The AC compressor, you see we just kind of got it hanging there. Got a little bungee strap just to kind of support it, but it is loose. So we're going to go ahead and just remove this right here and start trying to lift it up. I've got the computer. You want to be careful with this. I got it zip tied here. You don't want to be banging this into anything. Okay, so when I removed that nut, it actually popped up and off of there, so that worked out well on this side. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of move the lift back some because I've got more room this way, and I need to clear the brake master cylinder and the lines back there. So I'm going to kind of just move it forward a little bit, and that's also going to give me more clearance with my hood as I'm moving it back as well. Okay, so the fuel lines are loose from the engine. The shifter cable is loose from the engine. Okay, so we're going to slowly start working it up, and even though we've checked and kind of double checked things, we're going to go slow and make sure that we haven't missed anything. Now, one thing about when you start lifting it, it's going to push it far this way, so we'll have to kind of adjust that. This is just to give you a view of the room back here. Right now we've got all kinds of room. Everything is disconnected here, but we got plenty of room. We got plenty of room up here with the radiator and fan out. Okay, the only problem I'm running into now is I've run out of travel with my hood. I probably should have shortened up my chain here a little bit, but it's kind of just the way that it's worked out. But this hood's going to be in the way, and I don't have any more travel with it, so I'm going to have to mark the hood and take it loose, and we're going to have to probably take the hood completely off, it looks like. Okay, I did not take it loose, but I took the top bolts out and the back ones are loose, and I've got it where it's enough to clear here now. And I've just kind of got it held up by this 2x4. Okay, so we're going to continue lifting it. Going up slowly, we're double checking. Okay, and here's the room we have in the back. We got plenty of room coming up this way. Okay, so we're just going to keep going until we can get above the front of this little brace here. We're clearing the hood good at this point. Everything's clear. We're going to keep going until we... Okay, so we're just going to keep working it back here. We're all clear. Once we get past the front, we can lower. Okay, we're going to lower it down a little bit here slowly. Okay, and we're just going to set it down here on some cardboard for now. Okay, so we're going to finish lowering it on down. And it should have no problem setting, but if it does, we can put some blocks. Okay, so we got it set all down here. We're going to go ahead and get the lift out of the way. Right, so here it is all set, and now we've just got the task of removing the wire harness and the things we're going to need and carefully labeling everything, like the alternator we'll need to transfer over. We'll need to get the exhaust manifold off and transfer it over. Of course, we're going to need to get some new gaskets and stuff for that. So here's a good look at it. Okay, and what I may do is start with this, removing this, so I can show you the hole in this block here. And I found pieces as I was taking it out of the rod and various pieces that were falling down under the vehicle. Here's a view of the engine bay. Now I'm just going to fasten those back up so I can shut the hood down for now. So I don't even have the engine as of yet. I think it's going to be in maybe the next day or two, so I'm not in a great big hurry. See, this kept our condenser protected. Notice I got some towels up there just so in case that hood goes back, it's not damaging the paint or anything. And I'll give you a walk around view of the engine. And said, really surprisingly, there is not a lot of stuff it seems like to remove for this engine to get it out of there. I've seen a lot worse. I mean, it's very simple as far as the wire harness and everything goes. There's not a whole lot of stuff to disconnect. Usually there'll be a lot of connections in the box and everywhere else. And see, I had originally took this bracket loose, and I didn't even need to. I thought it was going to get in my way of getting to the exhaust. All this stuff is very easy to get to. And I will say that as far as like the mounts and the way it's put together, it's very well made. Heavy duty bolts, usually these are much smaller, and of course they snap the first time you try to remove them. So this car's got 150,000 on it, but usually those will snap. Now the only scary thing, I don't know how the exhaust manifold bolts are on these, but I really do get sick of having to remove broken off bolts. But that's a good possibility. We'll see what the engine looks like when it gets here. Okay, so I'm going to start taking these 10 millimeters out of this heat shield here. Okay, I went ahead and hit those with a shot of WD-40 just to lessen the chance of breaking them. Right, I'll go ahead and see. I've got one more here. Okay, there's a couple bolts and a strap running on the bottom. I removed the one bolt from underneath here. Alright, so we should be able to remove it there now. And we'll go ahead and get these brackets here off and out of the way as well. This is just a little shield that over the top of this CV there. So we'll go ahead and just get all this here out of the way. Okay, so here's the hole. Here's a piece of the rod that actually flew out. See, this will just come right off, and you can see right in there. So that's quite a quite a big hole that got knocked in there. Now I guess either something is lodged in there or the crank seized up. Either way, it won't turn, won't budge a bit. So without tearing the engine apart, I'm going to first just have to pull the transmission out. Actually pull the torque converter out of the transmission with it attached to the flex plate. So that's where we're at. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is carefully just label everything and start taking the harness and everything loose from the engine and the transmission. We're just going to kind of set the wire harness aside for now, and because we'll be swapping it over to the other engine. So I'm just going to go through the process of taking things loose and labeling them carefully and getting it just set aside. Okay, these coil packs, you got to push that gray part back and you just squeeze it down right there. Okay, so we got all of our wire harness connectors labeled, and we got the wire harness completely off of the engine and transmission here. Okay, so you notice I kind of got the engine set up onto this dolly here, and I've got a pan underneath. Essentially, like I said, it's locked up. I'm going to take the bolts out of the transmission one at a time and label them, and we're going to actually have to pull that torque converter out of the transmission by pulling back on the transmission there. And what's going to happen is a lot of fluid's going to want to leak out, so we've got a pan here, so we're going to be ready to catch all this, and we got cardboard down too. Okay, I'm starting off here with this 14. Now I've already got the starter out, and I'll show you where those two bolts are at for that. Okay, back here on this side, I just took the one from this side. This is the lower one for the starter, and up here where you see this STR, that's your upper. Okay, and here's a better view at that upper one there, right there for that starter. So I had those two out when I took the starter and the wire harness out. Okay, we're going to get on this 14 here and this 14 right here. Okay, remember I already removed the very lowest bolt, so I've just got to get this 14 and this 14 here, and this is going to be loose. Okay, so getting out what should be the last bolt, and I'm going to get my putty knife and start carefully separating these two. Now I've got the engine supported securely over here. It's not just sitting there. I don't want it to tip or anything. And my transmission, I've got some blocks under it, and I'm just going to try to wiggle it back carefully, and hopefully as we pull this out, all of the transmission fluid is going to go in my pan that's under here. So basically I'm just going to come in here with my putty knife and start gradually trying to work this apart. Don't want to damage see, it's coming apart pretty easy. I don't really care about the engine side because it's scrap, but I want to protect the bell housing there. So that's all I'm doing at this point, is just going to start wiggling this apart. Okay, so we're working it apart here, and there was a 14 that was below that one on the other side that I had missed. We're going to carefully just keep sliding this back, but you can see it's pulling the torque converter out. Okay, and there we have it. Surprisingly, there is no fluid coming out as of yet. Now we're just going to push the transmission back over out of the way. Just got it sitting down on the cardboard. Okay, if you look in here, you can see these 17 millimeters. Now, of course, we're going to have to back them all off at once. And you can only get an open wrench in there. Now, if these are so tight that we can't do this without rounding our bolts here, then what we're going to have to do is disassemble this engine until we can get this turning. And that's not going to be very, very fun. So luckily, the way that it's set up here, I can actually get in here to every one of these with the open end wrench. Now, a lot of vehicles you can't even do this, so I'm going to work on these and see how hard they are going to be to break loose. Okay, so you can see I actually got pretty lucky, and these are coming out. They're really thin bolts, but they're still, I was able to get them loose, and got them pretty loose now where I can pretty much spin it by hand. And I've got, the hardest one was on the top there, but this has not been too bad. And these are really thin headed bolts too, so I'm really surprised. I just figured that if the first one tried to round, I was just going to stop what I was doing and just start disassembling the engine. But this is working out for me, as you can see. So we're just going to, once we get this off here, we'll clean up that end and go ahead and stick that back in the transmission. Okay, so I put clean transmission fluid on the end that goes back in there. You want to spin this many times and make sure you got it fully seated. So just to make sure that it's down in there, you'll think it's in there far enough, and it needs to clunk a couple of good times to make sure that it's fully seated, or when you go to mount it up, it's going to be a problem. I do think it's interesting, however, how like the flex plate and torque converter are one. Usually it's like a separate sort of unit. The piece that has the teeth on it, the flex plate, and then the torque converter. Okay, so this is what you have as far as what you're bolting up to. You can see one of them actually came out. These other two are kind of stuck back in there, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this piece off right here, or at least loosen it up so I can get my 4 bolts out of the back. But you can see we didn't damage them any. They're pretty hardened little bolts, so it worked out to my advantage this once. Usually I don't fare this well on locked up engines. Usually I have to just tear the thing plumb apart to even think about getting the flex plate and stuff off. But here's what it is. First time I actually have seen one of these on this Hyundai, so it's kind of interesting. Okay, so all I did was just loosen them off where I could get them off of there, and I was using a 17, but it's just 12 star. Okay, we got our replacement engine here today, and this is the way these come. And you can see that we got some broken pieces on the valve cover. Hadn't really expected it real closely, but I know the valve cover is not going to work. It's going to have to be replaced. There's probably going to be a lot of other things. It didn't come with the intake or the exhaust manifold. The injector's on there. Looks like it's in okay condition, I think. So hopefully we can use that. But I've just got it setting. It's sitting on the pallet here on its side. I'm going to get it set up here and move it over here to the transmission over here and It's, you know, like I said, I like to plan on about a day just of swapping things, and more, you know, depending on how extensive it is, with what's all broken, because you got to look it over really good, and you know, because it's not uncommon. They're not guaranteed to provide you with an engine that every little piece on it's going to be fine. You know, they're just guaranteed to give you an engine that basically the block's good, the cylinder head's good, and it functions. But as far as anything else, you know, you're going to have to swap it off of your old engine. So that's just the way they come sometimes, unfortunately. So I'm going to get my lift, and we're just going to set it here and go to mating it up to the transmission. I think we're going to try to use the starter hole maybe. We could come through the bottom, but with it setting down on the floor, it's going to be easier to use the starter. So I'm going to get it over here, and we're just going to mate up the engine and transmission here first, and then we'll just go through the process of swapping things. We'll just get on the valve cover, and of course, you know, it'd be good. We're going to get some new gaskets on here: intake, valve cover, exhaust manifold. You can see the engine doesn't look quite so big with that intake and exhaust manifold off there. It is kind of a tall. For a 4-cylinder, it's, you know, seems to be, you know, a pretty good size though anyway. Okay, so I've took the time to check the surface for nicks, clean this up, put grease on the pins, put a little bit of grease on the center of this, and just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. We've done the same thing with the transmission. We checked it, cleaned it up, make sure we're not going to have any problems when we mate these up here. So we can turn this once we get it locked up to the transmission here, and so I'm just getting ready just to set it down here basically, and we're going to go ahead and start get the bolts that go into this. Of course, this one is for okay, that's not for the starter. So we're going to get those two for the dowel alignments. We're just going to push it up here. Got some cardboard down here. Okay, I actually set the transmission on some 2x4s there, and I'm just using the lift to guide it up into place. And we're going to get this bolt alignment peg. I'm going to push it into place here first. And see, it ain't quite perfect, but once we're going to start these by hand, and then we kind of shove it up on the pins here. We'll make sure we can start the bolt by hand. And see, I've got, even though it's like cocked here, I've got it where I can thread this by hand. I'm not hurting the threads any at this point. It's on the pin. So what I'm going to do is take the support out from under the back of the transmission here, because it's a little bit too high, and that'll allow it to pull up there nicely. So that's just to get these two alignment bolts. We got the one aligned up on the other side. Now the next thing that we want to do before we go any farther, I'm not going to get this tight on either side, but I'm going to go snug it up just a little bit by hand. I want to make sure I can turn that crank up there. If I can't turn it, it means that I don't have the torque converter seated back in there properly. Okay, so I'm over here turning it with a 22. You can see that it's turning just fine. I've got plenty of room, and now it looks to me like we're not going to be getting it through the starter hole, so there's no need in messing with that. We're going to have to, but what we'll do is we'll put those in once we get the engine into the vehicle, because the little window is directly underneath there. It'll just be easier to do it that way. But we've got our first two alignment bolts in, so I've got everything numbered. We're going to go ahead and start putting everything else in, get our starter on, get everything put on, and then we'll work on getting some of these other parts swapped over. Hopefully it'll go quicker than I think that it's going to. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned, but I am using blue Loctite, a liberal amount on each and every one of these. All these are marked. There's no guesswork. Every bolt is numbered as to where it came from. And you see how easily the transmission went together. I mean, sometimes they're a little difficult to line up depending on how tight the alignment pegs are, really. So we're going to go up top and get the other ones in here. So the main piece of advice I can give you when doing a project like this is just take the time to label everything, no matter how long it takes. Take the time to label each and every connector, each and every bolt. Take pictures of where the wires route. Just anything that's going to slow you down later. So I'm going to get these top two bolts here. Another thing, I usually like to do that I didn't do in this case, but you really want to check your threads all the way around before you ever go to putting bolts in, because if you have a problem, you're going to have to probably take it back off and fix those threads. Okay, now we just got the one below this. This is the one I forgot. I couldn't really see it when I was taking it out. And then we got the two more on the bottom. I think I can reach the ones on the bottom okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get those in place. I know I can reach the one from this side anyway. Don't know about torquing it. We're going to torque all these down once I get them in to 35 foot-pounds. But we're going to go ahead and get the starter in place. So I just got the two bolts for the starter, and we'll have all the bolts in the transmission and then just the flex plate bolts there, but we're going to do that once it's in the car. Okay, so I was able to go through and torque each of these to 35 foot-pounds. So we got everything torqued, including the starter, 35 foot-pounds. Okay, so I'm just fixing to go ahead and take the valve cover off. Pretty straightforward. Definitely less stuff on here right now. It looks like, I'm not for sure if this is bent or not. I think I can get this off without removing this, but this may in fact be bent. I'm going to use these coil packs because it only has 74,000 miles, so as long as they haven't broke these, I'm going to use these. So that's all I'm doing. You can see we got to get the coil packs out first, and then we got all of the bolts. Yeah, I'll have to remove this because there's a bolt right under it. So that gets removed right over here. And then there's a connector right here that it sets in that I'll have to get that right there, that tin loose as well. So I'm going to be working on that and getting another valve cover gasket. I don't think this one's going to be any good. Okay, we've got all the bolts out, and I'm going to forewarn you, even with all of these bolts out, you're going to have to pry up on this a little bit because it's really stuck. Okay, so what I did is just kind of got a hold of this little nub right here and got a hold of the edge of this and just picked up on it. It's really glued down there. All right, let's see if we can lift it up. Now I did spray, took air and blew all this area off so there's not going to be any dust, hopefully, or trash and contaminants going down in here. Now this is 74,000 miles. This gasket's not really feeling too good for 74,000 miles. So it depends on how much heat. It's not horrible. It didn't really appear to be leaking, but it's you can tell by the way the rubber's starting to get where it's not soft. Just a matter of time. Now the only areas we got to concern ourselves with is the front timing junction. We're going to clean that off really well. Scrape it off with a putty knife, and we're going to put a little dab of RTV back in those spots. The rest of it, we're just going to give it a quick wipe down. It'll be perfectly fine. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the spark plugs. Well, I've got it here. I'm assuming they're probably all good and definitely better than the ones off my old engine. Same, you know, sometimes they don't even come with these coil packs, so I'm glad, because I have swapped an engine and had to reuse old coil packs, and not even a month, 2 months later the coil packs go bad and then have to go digging back in and replacing stuff. So I'm glad that I got some good coil packs here anyway. Okay, I've been cleaning on this valve cover gasket. This is the set that we're going to be using here. Okay, so we have a couple pieces. We got one that goes around the fuel valve there. It's going to go down in here. So I'm going to go ahead and seat that into place here. So this is the valve cover off of the old engine there. Okay, I think I'm all kinds of mixed up here. Okay, something like this. I actually like how this gasket is a one piece. But anyways, I've done quite a bit of cleaning on this, and I think that the way that this valve cover gasket's caked up, that it looks like that the oil may not have been getting changed, you know, could have led to this, because it's pretty caked up in that engine, and it was really caked up. I had to clean on this a bit, and I still ain't got it just perfect. It would have been better just to have another valve cover. Unfortunately, couldn't use the old one. Okay, let's see what's going on here. Okay, so there's our nice new gasket in place. And of course, we got the gasket down here. So I'm going to go ahead. I've cleaned the surface here. We got to get a little bit of RTV in one of these places. Okay, I got some ultra gray. We're just going to put a little bit at the timing cover junction here and here. It's a little dab. Okay, if you can see that, it's all you need there. So we're going to go ahead and set this valve cover. Alright, so here we go. I'll try not to move it around once we get it set. Let me get my bolts. Okay, and I'm only going to go 80 inch-pounds on these, but there is a lot of them. Probably the most bolts I've seen in a valve cover. So I'm just going to work on getting these in here, and then we're going to get our inch-pound and torque them down. Okay, I did have to pop this back up. I mistakenly left the gasket on that part of that fuel valve there. I took it off of the valve cover, but the old one was stuck from the other valve cover, so I had to pop that back up and redo it. So I've got my inch-pound. We're going to go 80 inch-pounds, start in the middle, just work your way to the outside. So I'm just going to go through and do this. So I'm just going to go through and do this. And we'll have our valve cover all finished up. I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on popping those plugs out there and seeing what they look like before I go any farther. Okay, because I got to swap the intake over here and the harness for the injectors, I had to move this little harness, and I just numbered them, put the little straps back here, and we got this labeled. So I've got this cleaned up, and I think I'm going to reattach the fuel valve up here first, because that line is difficult to get on here with the intake in place. Okay, so we got our valve. We're just going to get it back in here now. Got our 2 screws. And it's got an O-ring in there, so as long as that O-ring is still fine, it'll be okay. I'm going to torque this to the 80 inch-pounds as well. Okay, so we just got the part that hooks up here, and we got our little 10mm bracket's going to go right here as well. We'll want to replace that. And we'll want to tighten these both at the same time so we can ensure that they don't get kinked. So I'm going to just kind of push that one centered and hands tighten it a little bit. We'll go to the lower. Okay, and see with it loose, we can easily center it up. And go ahead and fasten that. So this is definitely something you want to do before you put that intake on. Very hard to get to these. So I'm going to go ahead and snug these up. It doesn't have to be just terribly tight. Got a 19mm to snug it up with. Okay, I've just slipped this little foam piece back on now. Alright, I'm getting ready to put these intakes on. Alright, so they got the little nub there that you line up with the nub on that. Just helps take them off, I guess, really. So it's definitely peace of mind when you replace all this stuff as you go. You're not going to have to come back and mess with it later when you get a vacuum leak or something. Okay. Alright, so those are all on. We're ready to go ahead and mount this up. Okay, another thing that I did was I went ahead and connected the starter, because it's kind of a pain to get in there to get to that. Now this alternator wire goes over that bracket that you see right there. So that's how that routes. So everything's in place. We're getting ready to go ahead and set it up here. Okay, this valve that goes on here has this connector. You have to like pull down on this tab essentially to get that to slide off of there. Okay, so we're going to route this up and over this brace. It's got a clip too. Don't really think it's much necessary, but I'm going to get it onto our 12mm onto the starter here, just like that, or the alternator rather. And we'll go ahead and give that a snug. Okay, so this, okay, so we're going to mount this bracket back here. We've only got a couple bolts and some studs, so we're going to up there for the actual intake. We're just kind of getting this stuff in place here as we go. And you got to pop these little wire connectors off to be able to get to your bolts and stuff here. These are 10s. So we're going to go ahead and snug those up a little bit, and then we'll have that. So we got a bolt on this side, got a bolt over on this side. Okay, and we got one that goes right down in the middle. A magnet works real well for stuff like this. Okay, then we just got the studded bolts up here. We just get our little 12s on here. Okay, so we're snugging these up. Okay, we got our bolts on the bottom that go in this bracket here. When we get all these in, we're going to torque these down to about 15 foot-pounds. Okay, went ahead and reattached that over here, the transmission. So we are making progress. I think we're going to get the exhaust manifold on next. Okay, I've been working on these studs here. They were rusty on this one, so I doused them down with some lithium and run the nuts on each one of them and made sure that they were going to go just fine before I went any farther. But going to be putting this gasket on. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and slip this on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and douse these down good with some anti-seize. Now these were rusty, but they're not damaged. Of course, it only had 74,000 on it. This engine came from up in Canada, so I would expect there to be quite a bit of rust, corrosion. And this will just make it a lot better the next time if I have to mess with this. Right, so now we'll go ahead and get all of the nuts in place. Right, I'm going to go through and torque these to 25 foot-pounds. So starting in the center. An anti-seize on everything that has to do with the exhaust. Okay, so I'm going to finish these up. Okay, so I just put these back in for the heat shield. I've got some brackets that are going to go underneath of this. We're going to hold off on that. I'm going to get over here and work on getting the harness. We got the tedious job of hooking everything back up for the harness. I think we're going to do that. And then we'll probably get the hoses and we'll be almost about finished up. Okay, so I got my harness over here. I checked the spark plugs. They're good. They have some good plugs in there. Got the coil packs in. Just getting ready to start up here, mounting the harness, and we'll get the coil packs reconnected. Okay, we snapped this piece back on here, so we're going to go ahead and make these connections we have here. Okay, we pretty much got everything back to where it goes. So if you label everything, even where your connectors and where they snap into place, label everything, then it's going to go a lot quicker. It takes a little bit longer taking it apart, but if you don't label everything like that, you're going to spend a lot of time scratching your head trying to figure out. I don't have a photographic memory. So anyway, we've got everything hooked up to the engine. So we have very little to hook up once we get it into the vehicle. And that's the whole idea, just get as much hooked up as we possibly can. So we still got to get the torque converter bolted up to our engine. And other than that, we've got everything here ready to go. So it's storming today. I'm not going to be able to get started on it, hopefully within the next few days. But made some pretty good progress here. And like I said, plan on spending a day just getting your gaskets and getting your harness and getting everything cleaned up and swapped over. You could spend a good day on this stuff because you want to take your time and make sure everything's done right, and you want to swap over any good parts from your engine to your replacement engine. Anything that's got less rust and corrosion or whatever, swap it over. Okay, so we're getting ready to go back in the car. We got the engine all prepped and ready to go here. See, we're going back in the same exact way we got, using the lift points with the chain. We got the strap going over to the bracket on the transmission. So we're going to go ahead and get it lifted up here a little bit. Okay, so we're getting it up to the front of the car. We just got to get a little bit higher here. And you're going to have to kind of constantly adjust the lift because it's going to want to kind of walk one way or the other. But I just need to go a little bit higher here just to clear this brace. Everything else is looking pretty good. Okay, and the other thing we got is the engine wanting to swing around, so we got to kind of hold it. So I think I've got enough room with the hood. I'm going to slowly start lowering it here because we're clear of the brace and everything. I'm going to slowly start lowering it, and as I'm lowering it, I'm going to naturally need to move my lift back slightly. Here's a view up from this angle. There we are on this side. Okay, so we're lowering it on down here. You can see how much clearance we got up here. Of course, I can move the engine slightly back, or the lift back now, and have even more clearance. As I'm lowering it, I'm getting more room. Okay, so we're going to carefully lower it. Don't have to tell you how important it is that you ease this down. You can break a lot in a hurry, and I've done it. So we're gonna, and just because it came out easily don't mean that there won't be any problem going back in, so we have to go real slow and cautious. Have to loosen up my strap here. And the main thing I want to watch for, I'm pretty clear over here, but I've got this master cylinder over here. And another thing I want to do is make sure I get that fuel line where it's not going to get snagged, and pull it up here. Okay, so there's that fuel line. Kind of just popped it up here. And you notice I got that computer zip tied up there so it's not getting damaged. And everything looks pretty clear. Right now I'm watching the exhaust, keeping an eye on the lines on the master cylinder there. We need to bump it back just a little bit here. You note the strap I have there just to keep it from spinning. But so far this is going really well. But I'm still going to go cautious. I'd rather go slow and not have anything broken. Okay, so the front looks good. Looks like I may have to come back this way towards the driver's side. I'm getting pretty close to the passenger side frame over there, and there's a bolt I can see I need to move. I left the bolts in so I wasn't losing them for the mount over here. And I'm kind of battling the rain today. It's slacked up a little bit, so I thought maybe I could at least get it in here and get the motor mounts on. But it's been raining for like the past week, and no sign of it letting up anytime soon. So basically we're just lowering it a little bit, and I'm just going around and checking all around the engine, and then I'll lower it a little bit more. But it's looking real good so far. We're clear of the brake lines over there. The front of the engine is clear. And basically I'm gonna have to get this transmission side, I'm gonna have to kind of get it lined up and get my mount in there. It looks like I'm a little bit higher on the, or quite a bit higher on the passenger side this time going back in. Don't know why. But I'm getting about where I need to be here. So because it's so much higher over there, I'm going to go ahead, I think, and try to get my transmission mount positioned here and work it into place first, and we'll kind of go from there. Okay, so here's my mount. Getting ready to set it back in here. It's trying to rain a little bit harder on me now. Okay, I guess for some reason I was hooked up a little different. I don't know. This time putting it back, I had to actually take this mount off of the frame, put the nut on here and attach it, and then set it back down because it was not lining up at all. I don't have the transmission mount on just yet. I'm going to lift it back up now that this is loosely attached, and we're going to get that on. I noticed my biggest obstacle when getting it on the mounts is this exhaust back here, because it was up high hitting on the frame. So I think going back to my original theory, it would have been better to take the exhaust manifold off. I could have avoided taking the front off and the radiator and everything, and it would have been easier putting it back. So definitely the easier method is removing the exhaust manifold from and just replacing it once the engine's in. Okay, another thing that's frustrating me here is that there is no way, no how that this mount is going to go because of this stud that it's got to fit on here, because they decided to put that stud, you can't just slip it down on there. So nice job. So anyways, I got this side on, which is what I wanted to do, get that side set. So I'm just going to put a jack stand under here. I didn't know this was going to be a problem. I thought because you can access these through here that it would have been easy just to slip it down in here once this is up in place. No, it's not happening. So I'm going to get a jack stand under here, take that bracket back off the transmission again, which is what I should have done to begin with, because this just is not working. I've been fighting with it here for 10 minutes and I can't figure out how to get it to go on there. Okay, so I got my jack stand under there. Took this completely loose and just went ahead and mounted this up loosely. Now I'm getting ready to slide this back over here into place, and hopefully it's not going to give me any more trouble here. Okay, I've got the lift out of the way. It's kind of useless to me now. I got my jack under here supporting it, got a jack stand for backup, and then now I can kind of wheel it where I need it here. But I'm just going to get these bolts lined up into the transmission, and I'm going to get the bolts going through there. Okay, I've just kind of loosely started these long bolts first. It's going to be easier to line them up without them other ones clamped down. So I've got these just run through by hand here. I have been putting medium Loctite on all of these motor mount bolts. But the driver's side wasn't too bad to get lined up, but this over here just wasn't wanting to work out. Now I may have to get my lift back over here and pick up on this. These over here aren't tight, so they're going to have some slack. So if I need to move this and adjust it, I can. And we can move some of this stuff out of our way kind of here now, so we can see what's going on. Our fuel line, but it looks like it's going to line up pretty easy. I don't know that I even need that strap under there at this point. I think I'm just going to take that out. Okay, now I'm just snugging up all these bolts. We got the 14s. I'm going to go 35 on those. These bigger nuts and bolts, I'm going to go 45. The ones going in the transmission, the 17s, I'm going to go 45 on those. So I'm just snugging. I've got everything in place, and I'm tightening everything at once here for these mounts now. Okay, the motor mounts are torqued. Now I can go ahead and get this jack stand, this jack out of the way here. Okay, so we're going to work on connecting as much stuff as we can to the engine up here from the top. First up, I've reconnected this fuel line, snapped that down, put the clamp on over here, and refasten the line to the purge valve over there. There's that line going to that purge valve. Okay, next up I think I'm going to work on these heater core lines. Go ahead and get those. Okay, so these clamps are always fun. Okay, so we got the bottom one there. We're going to get our upper, get that clamp on. Okay, and there we have our upper in place. Okay, now we're going to get this vacuum going to our brake booster here. Okay, we got this shifter cable we'll work on here. We're just going to slide it right down, and it just locks itself right into place there. Okay, now right here you can see where the nut was at originally, and we do got to turn that square a little bit. But I'm going to just put it right back exactly where it was. Go ahead and snug that up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get this ground right here at it. It's another 12 millimeter. But it just runs over to the body here. Go ahead and snug that down. Okay, I think the next thing I'm going to do is get my AC compressor back up here. I just got to get it setting on this ledge here, essentially. And if I can ever get this bungee strap unhooked. Okay, it's stuck on there. Okay. And this has got some locating pegs on it as well. I'm going to get my other bolts. Okay, and I did put some medium Loctite on these. So I think once we get this in place, we're going to go ahead and maybe see about popping that belt back on, because it's kind of difficult to see what you're doing when everything's in place. Okay, we just hooked up our last little connector for the AC and then clipped it right there. Okay, so we got this ground up here on the front of the engine. We'll go ahead and snug that up. Okay, we've done what we need to do for now. Up top, we got the vehicle lifted back up. See, I got a 4x4 and a 2x4, so got about 5 inches or so back up so we can get underneath. We're going to go ahead and start working on everything we need to get from underneath. The very first thing I want to get started on is these bolts that are going in the torque converter. So I want to make sure that that's going to go without a hitch here. Okay, before we get on these torque converter, I'm going to have to get this mount going back in here first, because this engine's just flopping around. I'm going to be using medium Loctite on these as well. I'm going to need to get this bracket up here first. Okay, so we're going to tighten these down to 35 foot-pounds and put medium Loctite on them. Alright, so we got this 35. Alright, so I was just getting these bolts in. Looks like I'm going to be quitting again. The rain's starting back. It's one of those days you wish it would just rain and get it over with, but we're going to fasten these up. Okay, now with this bolt, usually I can just pull it over here, and I do have Loctite on this as well. Yeah, this is going into place nicely. I'm going to have to get a 17, I believe that was. Right, we're tightening those other ones at 35. We're going to go 45 on this big bolt. And this will definitely keep this engine still. So I'm going to get this in. I may have to take a break till this rain slacks up, and I'll get on those torque converter bolts. I'm going to go ahead and torque that down now. Okay, 45 foot-pounds. I know as you're doing this stuff, it gets to seem like it's just never ending, but you got to look at it like with every piece that you get put on here, you're one step closer to having it back together. Alright, I'm getting ready to put these torque converter bolts in. I've got my 17 millimeter. We're going to use some blue Loctite. Okay, and this torque converter should be easy to move with your finger to kind of fine tune it there. We've got plenty of Loctite on there. And we're going to take our 17 and we're going to snug it up, and then we're going to back it off to where it's just a little bit loose. And then we'll rotate it. We just want to make sure that we got all of them in alignment before So I'm just going to back it off just a little bit. Then we'll rotate it on around out here. Okay, you can see we got the 22 millimeter out here, rotating it. Okay, so here we go. And there's our next one. Go ahead and get plenty of Loctite. Don't want these to vibrate loose. That's the second one. Okay, so we'll go ahead and rotate it around to the next. Right, here's our third one. We're gonna torque these down to about 35 foot-pounds. Alright, so here's the fourth one. And now I'm going to get the torque wrench over here. We'll go ahead. And we have to hold it with the ratchet out here on the crank while we torque this. We're going to torque them down to 35 foot-pounds. And just make sure you got it on there straight so you're not rounding your bolt off, because it's not a very deep bolt. Okay, so I'm having to hold the crank, and right there's the first one. A lot of times, you know, you want to put a mark, you know, just so you don't lose track of which ones you've torqued. So I'm just going to work my way around and torque the other three. Okay, and make sure you're only going clockwise when you're rotating this. Okay, so there's our final one torqued. So we'll just kind of run around and double check them once more. Now we got our little dust cap. Next thing we're going to get on is connecting this exhaust here, and we're going to get plenty of anti-seize, and then we're going to get that O2 connector as well. Right, before we put this section in, we make sure we got our gasket in place. Okay, we're going to get some of this onto the part coming from the manifold as well. Right, so we're going to get up here and get the ones coming off the manifold. Okay, so we're slipping this up in place, or we're trying to at least. This anti-seize will get quite messy in a hurry. Okay, my gasket's all hung up. Maybe in hindsight I should have waited on the anti-seize. Okay, so we got that slipped into place. Just got to get our 19s on there. Just going to run these down hand tight till I get the upper ones started. And we need to slip this hanger on here. White lithium or something kind of grease makes it a little bit easier. Okay, now we just need to get these on. So make sure your gasket's in place. And then we're going to go ahead and snug them down. I wouldn't torque them more than probably 40 foot-pounds if you want to fuss with the torque. 35 to 40. Okay, so I'm going to snug them up. I've already fed that O2. Now there is a clip on that heat shield. You can see where that O2 runs up through there. But the main thing is to make sure you get it stuffed back up there. It's very easy to connect up at the top. I'm going to try to feed it in this bracket here, but it's not real easy actually. Anyways, we'll get that back up there and get it reconnected. Okay, we pulled our O2 connector. We're going to push that right down on there. Make sure that's snapped in firmly. Okay, so exhaust is on. I think we're going to get on our CV axles now. Okay, we're over here on the driver's side first. I got a light dab of grease on the end of my CV there, just to help that clip. And also light dab of transmission fluid around the shaft that's going in. So I'm going to take my rubber mallet out here. Now I want to make sure that we got it straight. Okay, and we'll just go and verify that it's in place. Alright, so we're going to get this passenger side in, and the same thing, we're going to come in through here, and we got a little dab of grease on the end, so it'll help that clip. Okay, now we're going to go underneath and slip that end up. Very important, make sure it's straight. And once we have it held straight, we're going to watch it from out here. We'll take our rubber mallet and the same thing. And then we'll go make sure we've got it knocked down flush there. You can sometimes use a hammering action to get those CVs to seat as well. And we're going to spray this with some white lithium, and we're getting ready to put this back into the knuckle here. Okay, so we're going to slip this in here. We're supporting it. Very important to support the CV axle so it's not getting in a bind and popping it out of socket. Okay, we're going to slip this up. And I know that these are self-locking, but I'm going to put just a little bit of this Loctite on here anyway for good measure. So we've got the 24 over on this side here, and we got to hold it with the 19. Okay, so I've got my 19 over here to hold this side. Or I'm going to take my 24, start snugging this up. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side once we get this side here together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the torque wrench over here. Okay, so I got this set to 110 foot-pounds. Alright. Okay, we'll go ahead and slip this brake caliper back on here. Alright, so we got Loctite on our top one here. I actually meant to wait on this bolt because it makes it more difficult to torque this one, but I think we can make do with it. Okay, and then we're going to get this lower one. Said plenty of Loctite. And just tighten it down as far as we can by hand. Sometimes you got to wiggle these around to get them to line up just right. Okay. Alright, so we just got a little extension and a swivel. Got this set to 70 foot-pounds. Okay, so I'm using that swivel and extension for that top one there. It's the difficult 17. Alright, so I'm going to keep working at it here. Okay, I actually took that swivel off. It wasn't wanting to torque with that swivel. And I just got a slim extension and was just coming over here, and I got it torqued down to the 70. So the bottom one's easy to get to. Okay, we'll go ahead and got a little Loctite. Got our 10 millimeter here. All right, now we're going to switch over here. Got our 12. Got a little Loctite on that as well. Okay, I'm going to snap that back in here. Right, I've got a 32. We're just going to start snugging this down. We're going to wait until we get the wheels and the weight of the vehicle before we worry about torquing this. And I wanted to take a moment to brag on this ratchet I'm using here. I bought this, I know it was 97 or 98. I bought this ratchet here from a place called Big Lots, where they have a lot of really inexpensive tools. So like I said, I've had this for probably at least 23 years, and I have really used this thing too. And I mean, I put cheater bars on it, everything you can think of. And I've used it a lot, and this thing is still holding up. I even worked at a shop, and I use this thing every day when I worked at a machine shop. So that's been a really good tool. It was like $5. I can't believe that it's lasted this long. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll I think we're going to hold off on the wheels for now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the oil in it here now, and I think then we're going to work on getting transmission fluid in. Okay, I got my 3/8. Let's see if I can't get some fluid in this cap here. Okay, we're going to be using this Max Life. Right, we're going to slowly start putting this in. See how it's going to go. We're going to put one jug, which is 4 quarts, and then another half of a quart. Where I'll show you the cap up on the front. We're going to check that later, but we're going to drive it. I'm going to put back what was in there, and then we're going to drive it, and then we'll make absolutely sure that we've got it level, and we'll make sure that the proper level is right. Alright, looks like it's going in really well. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the rest of this. Okay, so we got this jug in. I just need to get another half of a quart. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get our little vent back in, bolt back into place here. Okay, we got the fluids in. We're going to go ahead and get our radiator set up here. Pretty straightforward. Probably leave this cardboard until I actually get it in place here. But anyway, just getting ready to set this up here. Got the hoses on it, and they're marked. We got our transmission cooler lines. We got those marked as well as to where they go, and we're just going to refasten those right over here where you see those two. Pretty easy to hook those up. So that's what we're going to do now. Go ahead and get this into place. Okay, so we got the radiator set in there. Now the first thing we're going to do is set this condenser up into the slots on the radiator, and then we're going to push the radiator back. Okay, you can see on this passenger side it has to set in there into that groove or it won't set down. We've got this clipped on the top and the bottom. Right now all we got to do is move the radiator back onto the rubber grommet there. Just kind of feel for it. Okay, we'll just go ahead and pop our hoses back on. Okay, this here I can tell I've got it clamped wrong because of the way this hose is set in here, so I need to reorient that. Okay, I had the clamp in the right spot, but it's flipped over the wrong way. It's supposed to be down like that. I thought I had something twisted because I couldn't get my snap right down there on earlier, but it was because I had this upside down. So it's supposed to be flipped over like that. We're going to go ahead and get these clamps on here first, and then I think we're going to move on to just reconnecting these. And I got these labeled, like I said, as to where they go there. Okay, the hardest part of these is just getting holding the little washer on there while you're lining it up. You got to wiggle the lines. Make sure you can start these by hand. You know, it's like anything else, you get it cross-threaded, it's going to be a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and finish snugging those up. I'm using a 7/8 on these, by the way. Just using a regular wrench. It's fitting in there and working the best. Okay, we do have a 10mm for the bracket. Put that in first or you won't be able to get it to line up when you tighten the other ones. All right, we got a couple of connectors right here. So when you label everything, it's so much better. Yeah, I think we're going to start getting some of this ECM stuff back into place. Getting it tied back onto its brackets. Okay, so we got this connector going back in the box here first. Okay, just lock that down. And this wire also has this ground we've got marked as C. We're going to reconnect that here and get this tape off. Okay, so we just got a 10mm right here. It's also got a little right there that goes in to kind of help locate it. Alright, so give me a moment to line this up. Just a lot of tedious stuff, but nothing difficult. But these grounds are very important. Sure don't want to forget one. Okay, now this connector has a bolt back here. Okay, so there's a 10mm that holds that harness, and you can see how it sets into here as well. And then we've got one down here that it has to set on as well. So we'll go ahead and snug those up. Okay, now to set the ECM on this stud, and then we'll get the bolt and the one down below. Okay, then we'll just get our bolt in right here, 10mm. We got one more for the ECM right back here. Okay, this should have been routed under these, so I had to move that. Okay, we got 3 bolts in this bracket right here that we need to get. Let's move this back out of our way. This is what our wire here is going to mount to, and then we can get our battery tray. So there's one. I got 2 more. Well, didn't even have that in place, but we've got 2 more there to get. Okay, so the easiest way I found for these was to lay underneath and use a 12mm ratchet wrench to get those. They're still just difficult to get to, but we're going to go ahead and get this piece up here. All right, so we're getting so close to getting this together, and it's wanting to rain on me again today, so we might get rained out again, it looks like. Just sprinkling right now, or misting. Okay, so we're going to fasten those down. Okay, so this wire we're going to reconnect. Alright, so give me a minute to get that out. Alright, so that's going to just connect right there. I can get the cover back on this box here. And really, we don't like much at all, just a few things. Alright, so we're going to snap this little cable in back down here. And then we'll go ahead and just get this. Okay, now we're going to get this into place. Okay, now we're going to just fasten these 12s down here. Okay, just getting ready to set my air box here now. Alright, so pretty easy with this battery out of the way to set it and to grommet back there. Put these back up here. Go ahead and get our connection here. We'll tighten up that 10 or that Phillips right there. And we've got to get this connector. We've got one more back here. I said everything was labeled. Alright, so we'll get those clamps on there. We'll tighten those 2 down. Okay, I just went ahead and set the battery in while it was easy to get to. I don't have it hooked up yet. Then we're going to go ahead and try to get to work on some of this front end stuff. The bumper's real easy. I just got to get this brace piece in here first. I didn't realize at the time these could have just stayed on that brace. I'm going to go ahead and just slip them on. Okay, and I left them a little bit loose in case I need to adjust them any. So that all the bolts and everything are on the vehicle and the brace, so we're not losing them. And there's quite a few of them. Yeah, we'll tighten them all up at the same time. We're going to get everything started. Got to make sure that I'm doing everything right, or you'll be taking stuff back off and redoing it. So we got the another thing, we got the connectors underneath. I need to go ahead and get those before I start fastening anything down, because those may be difficult to get to. Okay, so I took it back up so I can get these on, because these are kind of difficult to push on there. I'm going to get these on first. Okay, so now we're back over here. Shorter one in the top. And then these longer ones go through here in the bottom. Said if I had to do over, I would have left this and just took the exhaust manifold. It would have been way easier. I was debating on it at first, but then when I went back in with the engine, I could see it would have been easier. I mean, because it's not that hard to put that exhaust manifold on there. That could have been done in the vehicle. It would have saved me a lot more room. Just made things a little bit easier. Okay, now we got the short up here, and then the two with the big washers down here. 1 second. These are looking a little rusty in there, so I put a little white lithium on there. We're not going to tighten anything up till we get it all. Make sure we got everything lined up, everything where we need it. Okay, so we got all those bolts tightened down nice. So I went ahead and put this clamp right here down, and working on putting the bolts back into our overflow tank. Alright, the next thing I'm going to put back is this piece that goes inside of this fan shroud. And it basically, we just got one screw that's really in there, and it just clips in this one end, but that screw's right in my way. Okay, so we're slipping in that bottom, and we'll just put our little Phillips or 7mm screw. Right. Okay, we'll just push this back on here. Okay, I finally figured out where that snapped back to. It goes right back on the side of this battery tray. Okay, so getting ready to slip this part of our intake back in, and I'm just gonna get our 2 bolts that are right up here. So shouldn't give us any trouble. Okay, so I was checking the hood to see if it's latching, because sometimes when you disturb these it won't latch properly. So I was checking that out to make sure. You want to make sure your hood's going to latch. So I'm ready to go ahead at this point and get the bumper on here. Not a whole lot to it. The fender wells were more trouble than the bumper. So we've got our bolts up here. Where it goes, it just snaps into these areas, and then the 3 screws that I was showing you that go on each side there. And then we got our 2 fog lights right down here that we got to plug in. Other than that, pretty simple. Okay, so we just got it set in there. Very first thing, I'm going to get these loosely on either side, and I think we're going to Start working on popping them in where the lights are, and then we'll get off. We got our little snap rivets that go in the front. Alright, we'll just go ahead and start trying to pop these in. And I've got a whole kit of these if I need them. I mean, it's really, you can get a whole kit of these like assorted for like $20. Usually I break about every one of them, but somehow none of these broke. But they're pretty handy, and they're really strong to be plastic. So it's a Phillips screw, but you can just push those things right in there. Yeah, I use a lot of white lithium. It helps things not to break when you go to taking them apart next time. Okay, so there's that side. Okay, so we're going to go back under the fender there and put these in. I got a 10, and these other Phillips are really, they're all Phillips. This one has a 10mm head on it. Okay, so here's the 10 that's going to go right here. And again, I like to get all these started before I snug them up, so you never know about alignment. Okay, so the next one we're fixing to get, if you can see up in there. And then we got another one up in there. It's almost impossible to show you, but we got two more. You can see the little, it's coming from the top there where our Phillips go. Okay, we have to make sure to hook our lights down here up on both sides. So now we're ready to go ahead. We're just going to get this inner flap in here now. It's a good time as any. Okay, so I got this side on. I remembered I need to adjust the door on the other side, so I'm going to leave it off for now. But we've got this back in. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is start getting some coolant in here. The way I like to do it, I got a jug of concentrate. We're just going to put a jug in, and then we'll follow that usually with like a jug of distilled water, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Okay, I'm just using my funnel that says for getting the air out, and it's got a bunch of adapters. We just got it set on there. So we got a jug of concentrated, and we're going to go ahead and just put this whole jug in there, and then we'll get a jug of distilled water in it. Also very important, make sure you have closed the valve on the radiator before you start doing this. You know, check for leaks, make sure you don't have anything loose or any lines loose. But I did have the valve open on mine. I made sure to shut that when I put the radiator in. But it's easy to forget stuff like that, and before you know it, you got a big mess. So we're going to get this whole jug. Usually, this depends on how much the system holds. But I'm going to go, you know, a jug and then a jug of distilled water. If it still needs more, then I'm going to just start putting it in little by little. I'll put about a quarter of a jug and then a quarter of a jug of distilled water. Just do it little at a time, so we can maintain that 50-50 mixture. Now the bad thing is when you get an engine in, you disturbed all of these coolant hoses. It's not uncommon to have a leak spring up somewhere, so you're definitely going to have to look for that. It's usually what I'll do is I'll have to come back and I'll just back those spring clamps off and put a regular screw style clamp right in front of it, and then I don't have any more problems. I've got a whole big kit, stainless steel clamps I got from Harbor Freight. I think it was only like $10, but never have any trouble with the screw style clamps. Alright, so I've got a jug of the concentrate in. I don't expect we'll have to work some of that air out, but we're going to get a jug of water, and we're just about ready to actually, I'm going to get the battery connected here, and we're probably going to fire it up. Okay, so we've just kind of double checked things. We're going to go ahead and get this positive connected here, maybe. Definitely make sure you got the right side of your battery on the right side. Alright, we'll go ahead and connect our negative. And with any luck, this thing's going to fire right up. But we're going to find out. The fuel will have to prime itself, but we shouldn't have any trouble cranking it up. Okay, and I got about 3/4 of my jug of water, and it's about right here. It's just sitting there, so until we get it circulating, it's not going to do much more. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and crank it up, and it may run a little rough at first until we can get it. It might even have a relearn, I don't know. And we got some check engine lights popping up. Don't know if that's old or new. This is the first time that okay, so it's not sounding bad. Let's go out here and see if we can get it to stay idling. We'll go check for leaks. A little bit of noise up in here, but it may be due to the engine setting, and it's got to circulate that oil around good. Or it could have some bearings on one of these things making a racket. But expect a lot of burn off. You've been working on this, you're going to have oil and stuff going all over all your exhaust. So don't see any drips. Of course, it's been raining on and off. It's going to be hard to tell anything. But it's sounding pretty good. I need to kind of circulate this coolant around here. I think while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go ahead and slap the wheels on here since I've got it running. It doesn't appear like I've got any major problems or leaks. So we're going to go ahead and get the wheels on here next, and hopefully we can take this down the road. Okay, I've only got a couple lug nuts on them. I'm supposed to go to 150 foot-pounds on my axle nuts on both sides, and then I've got to lift it back up to put the cotter pin in. It's just pouring rain right now. Okay, so we got our cotter pin in. We'll get the wheel back on and torque it down to 100 foot-pounds. Do this on both sides. Okay. Had to pull the car up in the garage. The rain's getting a little bit ridiculous. All I got to do now is torque my lug nuts. It's going to do that. I'm going to torque those to 100 foot-pounds on both sides. Now, I only managed to get a jug of coolant and about a half a jug of water. So we'll see how that goes. Now, I don't have any in the overflow tank right now, so that might account for another half of a jug. But anyways, we're going to get the lug nuts torqued now. Right, so we're just going to got the 21 here, go in a star pattern. Right, so we'll double check them. Okay, got our cap back on. We put the remainder that was in that tank over in that. It's got a little plug, and just dump the rest in there. So yeah, I've got about a gallon and almost 3/4 of another gallon. So I guess that's about all it holds. But anyways, we're fixing to go ahead and take it down the road here, and the rain's not going to slack up, so we're just going to have to drive it in the rain. Okay, and before we forget, we're going to pop our cover back on here. Right, I took the time to put a little armor all on that so it looks a little better too. Okay, we're fixing to take it down the road here. And I've got a check engine light. It was some O2 sensors and other things popped up there. So far it's shifting real good. The engine sounds real good. It does have a long crank. It cranks and it runs smooth, but it's got a long crank, and I don't really see any codes pertaining to that, but I'm gonna have to figure that out. And the only other thing we have to do is pop that plug and make sure that our transmission fluid is going to be right, but we put back exactly what we took out, so I would expect it's going to be pretty close. But the AC and everything works, which is good. You never know until you get it together. But seems like it's got quite a bit of get up and go for a little 4-cylinder. So I hope that it gets the gas mileage it's supposed to get. I think it was saying 28. So we're going to turn around down here. But so far it's doing really well. Haven't had any issues other than the crank. It's doing really well. So it's got a really long crank. I don't know if it's cam sensors. I don't know what's going on. But it cranks up and it runs really smooth. But it gets up and goes. I was real excited to get this together. It's a really nice looking car, and I'm really curious to see how good that the fuel economy is on it. But I'm going to check a few more things. Hadn't had any leaks or anything, so everything is going really well on this project. So I'm anxious to take it out on the interstate and see how it's going to do and really open it up. But it handles really well. It's got almost brand new tires on it, so. And the steering and the handling feel perfect. So that's a big plus. So anyways, everything went pretty smooth on this, and it's driving real nice. Okay, so that's going to do it for the video on replacing this engine here. Now I figured that I spent about 5 days, not really full days, just kind of partial days. It was a couple days getting the engine out and everything, and then I spent a day prepping the engine, swapping things, getting it ready to go back in, putting on gaskets, etc. And then I've spent a couple days, of course it's been raining, you know, but I've spent a couple days getting it back together. But it hasn't been that bad. It's been really easy. I really like the way that these Hyundais are made. Seem to be made pretty solid. As far as the engine and everything, I was looking at like $2,130. The engine itself was over $2,000. I've got less than $100 in gaskets, and I got some new hood shocks and some other things, but really with the gaskets it was like barely over $50 as far as that went. But the engines for these are really expensive, but that was $2,000 delivered to my doorstep. So tax and everything. So these cars, like I said, are supposed to get, I think, around 30 highway. So they're supposed to get really good gas mileage. I'm not really sure. I'm kind of curious to test it out and see how it does. I mean, it was a pretty easy project, I feel like, and everything went really well, and I feel like this is going to be a really good car. So the engine only had 74,000 miles on it. It sounds beautiful, and it runs and idles really nice. There's something going on. I'm getting something for the fuel pressure, but there could be something else. But it's just got a long crank basically right now, but it's not really that bad. It's just a long crank, and I'll have to figure that out. But anyways, yeah, these are like 24 highway and 35 highway, I'm sorry, and 24 city they claim to get. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you liked the video, you found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave a comment below. And, you know, as always, I invite you to subscribe. And thank you for watching.